Entering the Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by DraftKings. This is it, Fantasy Championship Week, the final ranking show for the season, Week 17. Rankings debate by position. Smash the like while you're here. Sub to Mayo Media Network. And I want to thank everyone who entered the Christmas bonus giveaway. Your ratings and reviews surely helped out. They really did. It was fantastic. Thank you so much. And congratulations to all of the winners. Reminder to play in the gigantic Fantasy Golf Championship. Race for the Mayo Cup, $50,000 to first place. It's $125 to play for the year. So January through the end of August. You can find all the details down in the description. You can click on the link to fantasygolfchampionships.com. Jake Ciely from theathletic.com. Christmas is in the past. New Year's is coming up. But in between, we got fantasy championships. Are you going to play in the golf again?
I think I will play on the golf again, although I might. Dennis Esser did a really nice job for most weeks, but I think I might pivot off his a few times. Throwing shots. He knocked me out last year, thanks to him.
It happens. Look, it's $4 a week, essentially, is what it breaks down to for the course of the entire year, and you can win $50,000. And I actually think, like, the less you know, the better. You make one pick per week. It takes, like, 10 seconds. You can attest to that.
I can attest to that. I actually made a nice little run late in the season just for the hell of it when I started going like, hey, I'm just going to pick this guy with a really cool name at 50 to 1 odds, and then he finishes inside the top 10. So, look, I don't think there's a bad way to play it, honestly. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and so listen, you can have up to 5 entries in it, and like I said, it's a very low bar. You don't need to know a ton. It's a really fun way, at a very low investment, honestly, to get into fantasy golf and golf, if that's something you want to do in between football season. There's golf sitting there. It starts right when fantasy football ends and ends right before fantasy football begins. It's the ultimate wedge sport for the offseason. Let's get into why we're here. Running back rankings. I have not done the rankings yet. I wanted to switch it up for the Week 17 show. Normally we put up the graphics. Here are the lists. No graphics today, just me and you. I want you to help me to make the rankings. And here's how I want to start. With running backs, who are the running backs you legitimately cannot sit this week? I have 7, or I have 8.
Well, so assuming Derrick Henry plays,
yes.
Derrick Henry's in that conversation. They said he would not have practiced on Monday. No injury designation they gave him after the game, so that'll be interesting to watch. You and I kind of ran through the whole 8 billion scenarios of where somehow Jacksonville might get a wild card, but really comes down to Week 18 for them. So that's why that's out in the air for everybody. But I say McCaffrey, Barkley, Henry, Eckler, obviously. Connor at this point. I don't see how you sit Connor at this point. And Dalvin Cook. And
you're almost there, right?
Josh Jacobs.
All right, I threw Joe Mixon onto that list, too. Those were the 8.
Okay, I can see Joe Mixon. I think that it's just a little frustrating recently, but I don't know. I guess Buffalo people are going to panic and wait until Monday Night Football, and the fact that he's been not so Joe Mixon since he came back from the injury. But again, how are you benching him? I was almost going to throw Alvin Kamara in that mix because this is the playoff stretch, the run of opponents we were talking about, and it hasn't been Alvin Kamara from 2 years ago, but it's been Alvin Kamara. Like, who are you benching Alvin Kamara for? So I'd actually throw him in the list, too.
You see, I wouldn't, because I'm looking at it right now. So Kamara plays Philly. It's not a great matchup. Like, would you play Tony Pollard or would you play Alvin Kamara?
Dallas. Where we got Dallas this week.
At Tennessee. Thursday night.
Well, you're going to have to already make that decision. I actually go Alvin Kamara by a hair. Just because the split, they're just not going to go away from the split. We've seen the week where Tony Pollard doesn't score, he doesn't get the big plays. Like, it's still a good game. You're not benching Tony Pollard. Honestly, I think that question you just asked me might be why we add both of them to the list. Because who are you sitting them for? All right, you're starting Kamara and Pollard.
Okay, so I'll throw Kamara into that next tier of guys. I have Chubb, Ramondre, Pollard, Ken Walker, and Alvin Kamara. And I was, honest to God, I was thinking about throwing Cam Akers into it too.
I was just about to say, I can't believe we're doing this. It's come full circle. But I mean, like we've joked about 2 weeks ago, we joked about like, it's now here. Like, who are you sitting Cam Akers for? Like, he gets all the work. They barely use Kyron Williams. He looks good. He doesn't look like the most explosive running back on the planet, but he looks good, and we don't have to worry about anything until next year. So at least for right now, Baker Mayfield has been capable as a quarterback. He's kind of like the Baker Mayfield he was back with the Browns. It's like, hey, you know what? This guy isn't a top 10 quarterback, but he's also not the dredge of the earth like he was playing with the Carolina Panthers. So I say, yeah, Cam Akers is in that too. Here, I'll flip it back to you, Pat. Who would you feel better about putting in your lineup for this week only if it was just these two, Cam Akers or Miles Sanders?
Cam Akers. I don't have Miles Sanders as a part of this tier. I like Miles Sanders fine, but he's on the next level down. So here's the level number 2 at running back, and we can put them in whatever order that we want. Chubb, Stevenson, Pollard, Ken Walker, Kamara, Leonard Fournette, Cam Akers, Brian Robinson, Etienne, Zeke, and Jerick McKinnon. If you've been riding Jerick, I don't see how you could sit him.
I don't think you can either. And trying to think if there's really anybody like. See, I was about to say David Montgomery, but they split. Wow, I was actually surprised they gave Herbert so much work in his first game back.
And like, there's the potential. Like Aaron Jones got hurt at the end of the Green Bay game with his foot injury. I would want to track that throughout the week to see how that goes, because then all of a sudden, like you're gonna want to play AJ Dillon, I think.
Yeah, I'm pulling up like the schedule at the side of the screen. So I'm doing these two at the same time. I mean, Leonard Fournette, but that split is still there. They're basically alternating drives, even though Leonard Fournette edges out a little bit, especially when they get. But I think that's a whole nother tier.
You wouldn't throw Fournette into that tier with like Brian Robinson, Cam Akers, and Kamara, because I mean his receiving floor at this point is ridiculous.
It is, but I kind of feel like just what if Tampa Bay gets out early? Then they don't need to pass to them. They
don't get out early. It's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
It's Sam Darnold. You don't think he could throw 2 picks to start the game?
Hey, no turnovers from Sam Darnold since becoming the starter.
Yeah, that's true. Nando tried to argue that their quarterback situation was perfect for next year.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't go that far. But like some things in the season change. Like Carolina with Sam Darnold, without McCaffrey, and without Matt Rule are like a pretty decent team, as it turns out. Don't trust them, but they're capable at this point. It's like the Chargers defense. Is it like actually good all of a sudden?
Or is it just advantageous defense? It's also, the talent was there. They were missing a couple pieces early in the year too. So I don't think it's great, but I do think it's an advantageous defense to the way that they're built. And it's a nice spot this week. This is, I think you and I talked about it, why we were talking about playoff defensive stashes 2 or 3 weeks ago. Like you say all this, and that's why I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not putting my name on this, so don't cold takes me on this. But I think there's a world where Russell Wilson's career is not done now that Nathaniel Hackett's gone. I mean, he looks toast.
I agree. I think Russ could come back. I mean, he got hurt in what was it, like week 3 or something like that.
Yeah,
and played through it. There's a chance that a part of this. I mean, their offensive line stinks for one thing. They won't even help him up off the ground. Poor guy. That if they just rebuild the offensive line a little bit, it's not like they have a ton of money and they have no picks, so that's going to be pretty difficult. But he just comes back next year and like he's 100%. Like I don't think he's going to be Russell Wilson from 2014. But all of a sudden, it reminds
Derek Carr.
What do you mean, Derek Carr?
Like he could be Derek Carr next year.
Oh, I think he'd be better than Derek Carr. It just kind of reminds me of the Chris Paul situation, where Chris Paul was done, finished. And they're like, could you find a team to take his bad contract? And then all of a sudden he's just on the Suns, and he goes to the Thunder. He's awesome. Goes to the Suns, and then he's awesome for like another 3 years. But he was done like 7 years ago.
And then he's throwing elbows in people's faces while they're not looking.
There you go.
Man, he's a dirty player.
Don't walk into elbows. I mean, that's on the other guy. You see an elbow there and walk into it.
How, to go back to this whole tier, how worried are you after this is 2 out of 3 weeks with a great game sandwiched in there, but how worried are you for Stevenson?
I am, obviously, but I also look at the splits. Like, he played 90% of the snaps.
Oh, I'm thinking of like Damian Harris finally comes back. He's been on the precipice of returning for the past 2 weeks.
There is a chance Damian Harris died 6 weeks ago, and they just didn't tell us about it. They're like, oh, no, he's limited. Don't worry about it.
They don't want us. Okay, sure, why not? Seriously, if Damian Harris did come back again, to like whatever, but that 2 out of 3 games were just kind of gross, and it's part of it. It's not his own fault. More to do with the offense and Mac Jones, but when Damian Harris comes back, and like they love to just use him inside the 10. I think we'd have to knock him out of that tier, basically. And this is way early because we do this on Tuesday, as you always mentioned. For hey, guess what, Pat? Your ranks will change. My ranks will change. But I would say that if Damian Harris, Ramondre Stevenson would fall out of this tier for me.
So are you with me on the Brian Robinson thing? And because someone asked me, I felt bad because obviously it was the wrong decision. They were like, why do you have Brian Robinson ranked so highly against San Francisco versus some of these other guys? And I think one of them was Donta Foreman. And I was like, oh, fuck, here we go. But my process on it, and I explained it. I was like, look, regardless of what happens in this game, you're going to see 15-plus touches from Robinson. It could be more, but I think that's going to be his floor. And he's probably going to get all the goal line work over Antonio Gibson. It turned, I think he had like 20 carries in like the first half or something crazy like that. Like he got the work. It's just the matchup overcame it and they ended up throwing for all their touchdowns. But I mean, that's the worst matchup that you can have. This matchup this week for him against Cleveland, much better matchup.
It's about the best you can find here. Yeah, look, this is football sometimes too. Like, Donta Foreman, super low. We talked about it in the rankings. Chuba Hubbard was leading, and this team has not made any sense with their usage every single week, but it seemed like at least Hubbard's role and touches were set, and then Foreman might get some, might be mixed it, and then they just went ham. But also the top of it is like the Detroit Lions ended up being like the toughest run defense of the past 2 months, and all of a sudden just everyone, even Blackshear was a top 25 running back. It was stupid last week.
Every time I put my eye gandered over to that game, it was like, oh, rush for 17 yards. Like they would hit the interior and they were just gone out the other side of the pile.
It didn't matter who it was. I know. And so, I'm saying that to, back up with you and the fact, like, sometimes, the process of what we go through, and this is why we spell it all out. Well, the thought process behind the rankings is like sometimes it just, you can't. Football's going to football, man. So, we do know that. We do know the Cleveland Browns run defense is, you can't get much better than that. Everybody runs on them. Even, 2 weeks ago, we played a bad matchup. It was like, hey, I don't really want to use it anymore, but hey, get Cleveland, and it worked. So, Brian Robinson, I'm with you on that. And I think Antonio Gibson is in play as a flex again, mostly because they're facing Cleveland.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good call. I didn't think about that. The other big split, and I went over this on the show that I released on Mayo Media Network yesterday, was the split between Algier and Cordero Patterson, which I thought was really interesting. Because Caleb Huntley is out for the year. I figured Avery Williams would just start randomly getting touches, but it wasn't. It was Algier played double the amount of snaps as Cordero, and no one else saw the field. So I think we have to really not lean on Algier, but I think he's a very competent flex play here.
No, I do too. I had Algier as one of the sleeper, they had a late round get overlooked by all the other rookies this year and everything like that. And I think this is part of what we were looking for here is the ability of Algiers kind of between tackles, will take on a few too many hits, kind of I thought would be a 60-40 split with Cordell Patterson letting to be the pass catcher, the complementary piece, do all that work there. So I like Algier. I'm an Algier fan. So, part of it is maybe I'm trying to come from a side where I saw the promise and potential and stash him in a lot of places. Arizona's defense isn't weak as Cleveland is against a run, but it's a spot where they're going to lead, and Desmond Ridder seems to, loves Drake's London, but it seems to just make this offense have that second level. It can actually do more things. So I think Algier would be tough to sit. We're talking about your RB2s. I think if you're here with Algier, I don't know who you're really sitting him for. I think he's in the conversation with the David Montgomerys of the world at this point.
Okay, well, that's interesting. So the second level, and this is the order that I have it, and you can fight back on this order if you'd like. Chubb, Kamara, Pollard, Akers, Robinson, ETN. Now, you know what? I like ETN more than I like Robinson. I'm going to change that. Akers, ETN, Robinson, Ramondre, Ken Walker, Jarek, Fournette, Zeke. And then this next level right now, I have Devin Singletary, who's been really good. Najee Harris, Miles Sanders, J.K. Dobbins, Pacheco, Latavius, David Montgomery, Zach Moss, who made me look kind of foolish. I thought that, what's really frustrating? Betting the over-under receiving yards for Deion Jackson at 11.5 and him ending up with 3 catches for 9 yards. And it doesn't really tell the whole story when you see the negative 9-yard catch that's in there.
There's to start. Yep, to start that as well. Before he even had the second and third catch, I tweeted that out too. I said, in my ranks column last week, I had them very close, and I had Deion Jackson slightly in front of Zach Moss. Huge whiff on that one because it's look, if they were going to be behind, which they were, it wasn't an enormous amount because that game was a slogfest, but if they're behind, it's like, hey, pass catching to Dejon Jackson. We know, like, even Zach Moss, even being the lead, we know Zach Moss from previous teams, well, team singular, the Bills, is that he's not the greatest pass catcher. Dejon Jackson has shown that before. There seemed to be an unsubstantiated rumor that he got in a shouting match or whatever it was. There was talk during the game. They referenced the fact that he fumbled last week. Well, now the week before, week 15, and maybe that was part of it. But whatever it was, he was third. He was behind Wilkins. I don't think anybody on the earth, any beat writer out there was saying that was coming. So I'm not saying that to say, give us a pass for Dejon. We missed on Dejon Jackson. But Zach Moss now in play against the Giants' run defense.
Yeah.
And I looked. Yeah, that's like, I think he's in play in this tier of the other names. The only one I think that kind of moves out of the tier, I feel better than you do in that group, is J.K. Dobbins. I think J.K. Dobbins is in the tier above this. I mean, what are we going to do? I know, he's not getting 25 carries, but is he just going to average 8 yards per carry for the rest of the season at this point?
The Ravens are going to win the Super Bowl. Watch, and this is how they're going to do it. They're going to average between Gus. I mean, I want to look into their futures because I think they're kind of like a sleeping giant here. That I think they know, and now that they've clinched, there's no reason to bring back Lamar until he's actually 100%. Yeah. That I think they're going to rope-a-dope everyone into thinking, man, this offense is terrible. All they can do is run. And then Lamar's going to come back and they're going, oh my God, what's happening? And then everyone's going to average like 10 yards per rush. But they it's like to watch them is so endlessly frustrating. It feels like they get inside the red zone every drive and come away with no points every time somehow.
Now you know how it feels to be like a Giants fan for most of the year.
The Giants were fun this week. They had that nice little comeback. They're going to be a frisky playoff team.
They're going to be one and done, but they'll be frisky.
Well, they might play. They could beat the Vikings in the playoffs. They're not going to beat San Francisco.
I don't know if they could beat the Vikings.
I mean, they almost just did beat the Vikings. Bay. Well, they're not going to get Tampa Bay. Dallas is getting Tampa Bay or Carolina or whoever it is.
That's pretty much like locked in, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, well, Dallas, unless Dallas catches the Eagles, but then the Eagles would follow the 5, and then they would play the NFC South.
Oh, God. Whoever's the Eagles fall to the wild card, and then they get Jalen Hurts back, somebody's going to get waxed in the first round. If it's So Tampa Bay, holy crap. So
I'm good with where I have Dobbins. Singletary, like Najee has been good. But so I forget who tweeted it, so I'm kind of misremembering it. But it was like, if you loved drafting Frank Gore for the past 10 years, you're gonna love Najee Harris for the next 20. It's pretty good, pretty good comparison.
That is actually pretty good. Although I don't know, I still have a slim bit of hope that this list Frank goes away this offseason. It doesn't go away while you're playing on it. It can't.
So we have Harris, terrible matchup. J.K. Dobbins isn't in a great matchup against Pittsburgh. And then you have Miles Sanders, who just keeps putting the ball on the ground. I'm not super confident in him. And the Saints do actually have a pretty good run defense, as we saw as they were able to limit Cleveland in a game where
they got their pieces back.
Yeah, they get basically everyone besides Lattimore is there, which is good for your run defense. So they have like the 3 bad matchups. Latavius Murray also has a bad matchup, mainly because of script. But if they're going to do anything in that game, it's going to be with him on the ground early on. That's a big chance to take. So you have would you play Devin Singletary over those guys? Would you play Isaiah Pacheco over those guys? David Montgomery? Any one of them?
I would play David Montgomery, even against in Detroit. I mean, Detroit, like maybe it was scheming, and then hell, maybe Carolina saw what nobody else did for a few weeks, and that's how you get through the Detroit front, is that you just go straight between your tackles, but you have to have good guards to do so. The Chicago offensive line is not that great, but Justin Fields opens things up. I would play Montgomery slightly above them. God, this is just, you just mentioned all the things. It's just with Singletary. The problem with Singletary is the same problem I have with Miles Sanders, is the same problem I have with some of these others, where like it could be any given week. Like
sure, but it needs to be this week. This is the final. No, I'm not leaving.
No, that's what I'm saying.
I'm not leaving the good Devin Singletary game on the bench Monday night again. What you have to think is going to be a high scoring game.
Oh, of course. You have to think about it. I'm just pointing out all the ways this could go sideways. So that's what I'm trying to say. It's like if you point out all the ways it can go sideways, it's almost like making a positive and negative list when you're trying to figure something out in life. So, that's what it comes down to. So Pacheco versus Singletary, I could see that one, even against Denver, just because they can kind of, like, Pacheco's the floor. Like, I'll say that of all the people you just mentioned in that group, if you don't want to get a 2-point on your box score, Pacheco's the one. Because even
if you
up,
need
down, in between,
if you absolutely
Najee Harris.
If you absolutely need 7 points, Isaiah Pacheco is the man for you.
well, he'll get you like 9 or 10 and a half in full point PPR.
Maybe.
He's Najee Harris. If you need Najee Harris, play Isaiah Pacheco. There you go. And he might fall into the end zone. So yeah, I'm with you for the upside of Devin Singletary. Oh God. Could you imagine? I feel like it's coming. I feel like everybody's going to be sitting there on Monday night. I just need 8 points from Devin Singletary. And then it's James Cook the entire game.
Well, there are 2 situations that I don't know what to do with. Like, where do I rank the Green Bay guys?
Well, then I think you have to wait for that.
Well, we're making rankings right now. I got to put them somewhere. Do I put Dylan ahead?
No, I would say as of today, let's just assume that they're good to go today, because that's what happened a few weeks ago. We did the same thing with A.J. Dillon at that time, and then he was fine and he played. So I would say,
where does Aaron Jones?
Aaron Jones would. It's Minnesota. I mean, you saw how Saquon Barkley made that game, and I don't think they have any big problems going against Minnesota. I think Aaron Jones would be like the Brian Robinson tier conversation.
All right, would you play Ramondre or Aaron Jones?
Ramondre.
Ken Walker or Aaron Jones? The Jets you can run on.
Aaron, you can, and I don't. Well, Mike White's back, so the offense might put up some points for a change. I think I would go Ken Walker for the surety of the touches.
Okay, Jerick McKinnon or Aaron Jones?
Wow.
I know.
I think I'd go Aaron Jones barely, but if you wanted to play McKinnon, I can't fault you. I mean, honestly,
I'll put Aaron Jones in there.
If it wasn't Denver, if it was any other defense, just play Jerick McKinnon. He's been way too good.
Yeah, but I mean, we just saw the Rams post 50 on these dudes. I think they may have given up.
That's certainly possible. I mean, they definitely looked like they. Maybe they were just trying to get Hackett out of there.
Yeah, could work. It did work. So where do you put A.J. Dillon then? Is he a part of that like Pacheco Singletary tier, or is he like a tier down with like Antonio Gibson, Algier, Bam Knight?
Yeah.
Like he's in there somewhere?
Yeah, that tier down. Yeah.
Okay. Now, I know you're going to say DeAndre Swift, but hear me out because he's no good. This is a great matchup for...
I didn't say him last week.
This is a great matchup for someone in the Lions' backfield. I think it's Jamal Williams.
Oh, no, it's going to be Justin Jackson. Screw you, Dan Campbell.
Jamal Williams basically did not see the field last week. It was the moment they got down in that game.
And that's the thing, is if you think it's in contention, you have to go Detroit, and you have to go with Jamal Williams. And the fact is that when they got to the goal line, as they have the entire year, he still gets all those. That's why I joked about Justin Jackson got that one carry 2 weeks ago when we were laughing about it, saying, oh, look, there's a 2 on the number. Oh, crap, it starts with a 4, not a 3. And Justin Jackson had that touch. So they just don't go away from him when they're at all in contention. And it's at home. We got good Jared Goff outdoors last week, which is a shock, but we know we're getting good. Well, we should get good Jared Goff indoors at home against Chicago's defense. So the play here, if we're doing what we know, we're doing how this should play out, Jamal Williams should be the play.
Okay, would you play Pacheco or Jamal Williams?
Oh, I still play Pacheco just because there's no way I trust that backfield.
Latavius Murray or Jamal Williams? I think it's Jamal.
Kansas City?
I think it's Jamal Williams.
I think it is. It's pretty close though.
Would you play Jamal Williams or Zach Moss?
I'd play Zach Moss.
Would you?
I hate it. Yeah.
Really?
It's like if you're gonna get 70% of the touch, 80% almost. Like it's just, and it's against the Giants' run defense. The Giants' defense is struggling in a period this year, even if they get back Adoree Jackson, but that's for the secondary. And who cares? Nick Foles isn't going to light up this, whoever's flipping quarterback for the Colts isn't going to light up that secondary. So I think Zach Moss is walking into Zach Moss is basically Isaiah Pacheco. And I'm saying like a much worse team, but the projection should be about the same. So at least I know I can rely on that it should be Zach Moss.
Okay, next tier of guys, I think this is where the real decision comes in. Bam Knight, Antonio Gibson, A.J. Dillon, Tyler Algier, Rashad White, James Cook, Gus Edwards. You can throw Chuba Hubbard and Donta Foreman into this tier as we try to sort them out. Is there anyone else you would nominate to be a part of this? Like you could have DeAndre Swift or Cordero or Michael Carter, Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson, any one of those guys.
I was going to throw both Dolphins into that group. I think they're both playable down this far.
Okay. Royce Freeman?
And... No. Against Jacksonville, though, watch him put up like 14 for 70.
I can see it.
Trying to see if there's anybody really
like
James Cook, but you wouldn't want James Cook to have a big. You wouldn't want this to be like 35-10, and I don't know if their Bengals are gonna fall that apart against Buffalo.
I think James Cook, he's a part of that like second tier of would you want to play James Cook or Gus Edwards? I think I'd rather play the upside of James Cook.
The one in this entire group, to go back to the conversation we had a few minutes ago, the one I feel best about is Tyler Algier.
Okay, I'll bump him up. Would you rather play Zonovan Knight or Tyler Algier? Because I think Knight's going to...
Algier.
I think Knight's a pretty good look with Mike White back against Seattle.
He is, but he went from not being usable to startable, but I would still play Algier. Yeah, I mean, I like Zonovan. I think now he deserves to be back in this conversation.
Okay, so Algier, Knight. Who's next? A.J. Dillon or Antonio Gibson? Or Foreman? Or
Gibson.
Gibson? Really? You like Gibson more than
Yeah.
you? So Gibson, Dillon, Rashad White, James Cook. Which of the
Can I put a note on Gibson? Can I put not if Carson Wentz?
It's going to be Carson Wentz.
Oh, God. Forget it. No.
Okay.
Gibson falls further down.
All right, put it this way. In my rankings, you can find them in the description a little bit after the show posts. I'll bump up Gibson if Heineke is back in. Do you want Mostert or Jeff Wilson?
I gotta go Jeff Wilson, honestly. I think that was first game back in the action. It looked like they cut. Mostert started, but it looked like as the game went on, if you just sat there and kind of watched it, it felt like Wilson was the lead, if that makes sense. And against New England, I think that you're looking for more of that, what Wilson brings versus Mostert explosive plays, although I think he gets his touches. But I think it's very close. I think it'd be like a 60-40 Wilson split.
Do you think it's funny that we don't even mention Kareem Hunt anymore?
I mean, we haven't in a long time, honestly. That's just, but it's partly because Deshaun Watson's just, is he ever going to shake off the rust?
Probably take till next season. Do you prefer Chuba or Donta Foreman?
I don't care. Flip a coin. We're going to be wrong. Every time we think we figured out the Carolina Panthers backfield, it flips. And hey, look, kudos. Fine. They're screwing everybody up because it's working every single week and somebody else goes off every single week. It feels like Foreman's the volatile one. Foreman feels like the one that gets you what just happened last week, or is the one that gets just out scripted because of what they plan to do and gets you 3 points. So it'd basically be, if I was telling people out there for their lineups, which I will be, if you want to play them, Chuba would be the one to play if you just want to make sure you get an RB3. If you want to potentially get top 15 or know that you might get somebody that you're looking at your box score, wow, I only got 2, that would be Deonta Foreman.
Would you play either of them over someone like Jeff Wilson?
Not unless I needed the home run.
Okay. Would you play either of them over A.J. Dillon?
That I could do. Only because that situation's kind of iffy.
I'm going to put them right behind James Cook, back to back. I'll put Hubbard above Foreman, so it would go Algier, Bam Knight, Jeff Wilson, A.J. Dillon, Rashad White, James Cook, Chuba, Foreman, Gus Edwards, Antonio Gibson, Raheem Mostert, DeAndre Swift.
That works for me.
All
now
right.
Watch Swift be a top 5 running back.
Shit, I'll keep watching. You tell me when. You wake me up when it happens, all right? Okay.
It was week 13.
Oh, yeah. But what was he, 8th that week? That was very good for him. What a week.
Week 1 and 13. 1 and 13, that's what he has this year.
Oh, I can't wait till week 23. We're going to be looking good. All right, let's talk receivers. This one's a little bit... Do we think Lockett's going to be back?
It sounds... I would lean more doubtful than... the guy didn't even get out there last week, so... practice, he might play. They were pretty much he's not making it back this week.
My poor guy, Marquise Goodwin. He dove for that ball and broke his wrist. It was not good.
I know. And a lot of people were out there what the hell happened to Marquise Goodwin? I was talk about dying on the field. There you go.
And then he came back. And then they threw it to him and he couldn't catch it because his wrist hurt too much.
I know.
They're in shambles.
It's one of those skateboarders and just
So I think who you're starting At wide receiver, I don't think it really matters the order. Like, I'm giving Zay Jones a pass. He got Sauce Gardnered last week. Turns out they're not.
We talked about that, yeah.
We did, yeah. And, I mean, Zay, Kirk, I'm just looking at the big list here. Mike Evans. If you've somehow made it to the finals with Mike Evans, can you play him?
I mean, you think it's been what he's been for weeks, though. And like I drew this comparison. I don't know if I said it to you or if it was my podcast, but I said 2 or 3 weeks ago. Yeah, because it was what was this week 7? It was week 14, so 3 weeks ago. Said he's essentially Gabe Davis, so he is playable. But that's who he has been ever since Chris Godwin started being Chris Godwin and 100% healthy and getting 10 plus targets every single week. He's turned into Gabe Davis. So if you want to, hey, look, Gabe Davis last week, we were like worried that like all the weather and stuff like that. So big game. This week, 3 points probably for Gabe Davis against Cincinnati in a shootout. Watch Buffalo score 40 and Gabe nothing. But that's where Mike Evans is now. He's a boomer bust wide receiver 3/4.
So here's the list, and I want to kind of fly through these so we can get to every position. Jefferson, Diggs, Hill, Amon-Ra, Devontae Adams. Hopefully he doesn't have 2 catches again. Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, Chris Godwin, DK Metcalf, although I'm going to bump him down in the rankings. I do think that's where Sauce Gardner ends up setting his sights this week is on old DK Metcalf. You can't bench him, but maybe he's not the strongest.
Well, here's the one thing. You might want to keep him where he's at. Sauce is 84% left. He's primary left. He doesn't follow. So the Seahawks could, as you mentioned, because you brought this up, but the whole Zay Jones, Marvin Jones thing is maybe Marvin Jones got sacrificed to him. It didn't happen because, Zay Jones is 33 about across the board. They could just play DK Metcalf on the right most of the game and force. It's one of those things where some corners aren't comfortable. And so I don't know that you get true, just a speculation, but if Sauce Gardner does follow him to the right, I don't know if he's as effective as real Sauce Gardner is. Not that we have a lot of tape to base that on, but we do know the Jets just play Gardner on the left. So I don't think I would move DK down too far.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, he's still going to be like 12 or something like that. So
yeah, you're still playing.
Chase, Lamb, Godwin, A.J. Brown, T. Higgins, Waddle, Garrett Wilson, Terry McLaurin, Mike Williams, DK Metcalf, Zay Jones, Amari Cooper, Keenan Allen, Christian Kirk, DeAndre Hopkins, DJ Moore, Jerry Jeudy, Brandon Ayuk, Devonta Smith, Jacoby Myers, Juju, Gabe Davis, and Chris Olave. If he's back, I would most definitely play it. I'm going to throw Drake London into that mix as well, just with the overall volume that he's seeing. He'll be at the lowest end of this. Am I missing anyone from like Michael Pittman's not a part of that. Christian Watson isn't a part of that. Mike Evans isn't a part of that. Like, I don't think that they're necessarily must starts.
I was actually looking. I think for me, Christian Watson would be just, especially against Minnesota. He's the one, like, Alan Lazard had a little bit of a bounce back and Dobbs didn't do as much, but I feel like Watson's kind of like locked in. Like, it didn't happen for a great game, but there's no way. Put it this way: if it was on my team, there's no way on earth I'm benching Watson. I would play Watson before Gabe Davis. There's no way I'm benching him at home against Minnesota.
Really?
Watson would be an all my. Watson would 100% be an all my lineups.
I would rather play Gabe Davis this week in a potential shootout game. Okay, so
who was the other one? Because repeat those.
Drake. So the last ones were like Juju, Gabe Davis, Olave, and Drake London.
Okay, so Juju, yeah, that's a tough matchup, so I could see having that conversation. Patrick Mahomes doesn't need him. You can just spread it around. So, yeah, I think those are good.
Okay.
But yeah, the one out of that group, I would pull out Watson. I would pull out Watson to the previous names.
Okay, I'll put Watson into that group. Is there anyone, like, do you want to make a case for if Wentz is playing, like, is Curtis Samuel now one of those guys? Like, back to what he was earlier in the year?
No. The one thing is it's the same thing I said about Jahan Dotson for weeks on end on waivers, is that once he got back to 100%, I know he had that connection with Carson Wentz, but that connection with Carson Wentz is the same connection that Heineke eventually developed with him. It's when they get to big plays needed / in the red zone, it's Jahan Dotson. And forget the size. Throw the size out of your mind. Doesn't matter that he's small. When it comes to scoring opportunities, Wentz and Heineke. Before Wentz went down, Jahan Dotson was the only one with an end zone target, and he led the team in red zone targets with Carson Wentz. So no, if it's Carson Wentz or Heineke, it's Jahan Dotson. I would play Jahan Dotson before Curtis Samuel. Curtis Samuel he's Gabe Davis. He's 18, or he just doesn't even get used.
Dotson. No, there he is. He's right by Slayton.
Where do you have Brandon Cooks?
I didn't have him in at the moment. Like, and not a part of like.
I guess Jacksonville. I think you have to play him.
Do you? He's been horrible.
Yeah, look at last week. No, last week was good.
What's good?
I mean, a wide receiver 3 finish.
I feel like that's like the overall upside here at this point, isn't it?
Yeah, but I feel like that's also like I just think no matter what, he's going to finish as wide receiver 3. That's the only reason I threw his name out.
All right, I'll chuck him in. Nico Collins is never coming back, right?
No, he's out for the year.
But they haven't put him on IR yet.
I thought they officially announced it though last week, is that he was out for the year.
Yeah, maybe he is. Maybe I missed that. I thought the whole thing was like, if he's actually out for the year, why haven't you put him on
placed on injury reserve?
Okay, so he's
on injury reserve.
So he is gone for the year.
Yep.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
good for him. So
making me misremember my facts. Did you say Brandon Ayuk earlier, by the way?
Yes.
In your whole list of names?
I did.
Okay. Okay.
So this next like little tier is like Evans, Pittman, Isaiah Hodgins. Like, do we just fire him up? Full go?
So basically Isaiah Hodgins and Richie James are basically about the same guy. The difference is that Isaiah Hodgins has been a little bit more effective with the touchdowns because Daniel Jones, someone to bring up the Jahan Dotson thing, it's like when looking for potential touchdowns, once they start getting inside like the 30, even before they get to the red zone, Hodgins becomes, I don't know if that's what teams are starting to lock down on Slayton or whatever it might be, but what the game planning is Hodgins kind of pops up. Like if I was ranking them, it'd go Hodgins over James, but it'd be very close. It'd almost be like the Jeff Wilson or Raheem Mostert situation.
Would you have Slayton above either of them?
No.
Okay.
It was because Slayton's turned into Matt Forte, the wide receiver. Hey, do your work, but if you don't do it in between the 20s, you're done. Like he just gets eliminated from the discussion once they get close to scoring.
All right, so let's try this. We're going to go after Drake London. Evans, Pittman, Thielen, Dotson, Deontay Johnson, DJ Chark, Hodgins, Cooks, Samuel, Richie James, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Pickens, Slayton, Hollywood Brown, Tower, Boyd, Allen Lazard.
Jacoby Myers?
I had Myers as part of the tier above.
Okay. And you had Deontay Johnson as the tier above, right?
No, I have him like buried in this tier. He sucks.
He's volume. He's Jacoby Myers. I said that how many weeks ago? He's Jacoby Myers now, so he should just be with Jacoby Myers.
Yeah, but Jacoby Myers actually does things like throw the ball to the other team at the last play of the game, then come back and have a great game for you.
Yeah, I think there's not really many other names. I'm just looking through. Like, I know it's against Philly, and I'm not really super excited about it, but if there's no Olave again, Shaheed he basically comes into like a desperation play. There are people who watch your show and like who are in deeper leagues that might need Shaheed.
Need
the Shaheed.
Need the Shaheed. So
need the need for Shaheed.
I'll throw Shaheed in there. I'll throw Demarcus Robinson. Like it'd be, I would find it impossible to trust Hardman if he came back this week.
Yeah, I think you're gonna get a lot of Tony questions though. Well, I will because I know you'd answer your questions.
Where would you put Tony? Is he would you rather play Shaheed or Tony?
Shaheed. Tony still barely was like getting involved. He just happened to get that touchdown, which is like makes everybody excited because it's look at what Tony can do. But it's kind of like it's the Jameson Williams thing. Like that's great, but you're really gonna bank on what 15 snaps and like 3 touches, like 2 touches.
Like, would you rather play Demarcus Robinson, Hunter Renfrow, or Kadarius Toney?
That I might risk Tony.
All right, so that's the spot.
Only because I would feel better if Lamar Jackson was that quarterback for Demarcus Robinson, but not Tyler Huntley now.
And then it's like Gallup. I mean, I would listen. I was way wrong about Treylon Burks. I actually think he's good, but I don't see how you can start any of the Titans receivers.
Well, it's because Malik Willis is a quarterback.
That's what I'm saying.
Not with
Shee Smith got
it's essentially
hurt. So like Terrace Marshall is like back in play a little bit.
Nah, it's Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold only knows about one wide receiver. How many times do we have to see this now? Sam Darnold, one wide receiver. The rest of the team will just forget they exist.
Pringle, maybe.
And then Dante Pettis and like whatever it might be. Somebody's gonna get a touchdown. Just
Chris Moore, Marquez Valdez, Scantling. Like these are the names we're into here. Quez
Yeah,
Watkins.
this is some desperation plays down here.
All right, I think we talked through the guys that you need to have here. Let's skim through the rest of the positions.
George Pickens.
Pickens was already. I already said him.
Oh,
He was already in there.
it says so many names. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, like
All right,
we're down in the 50s now. Your decision hopefully has been made. Again, you can just cross-reference the actual rankings to go along with it. So tight end, Kelsey, Ingram, Kittle, Freiermuth, Hawkinson, Andrews, Waller, Goddard.
Waller.
Not necessarily. I said Waller. Not in that order, but are those like the 8, like the must-play 8?
Yeah, because Njoku's fallen out of that conversation. He also gets Washington's defense has been great against tight ends this year. Everybody else is pretty much up and. Are we back? I'm about to say this. I'm sighing in my own mind, as you can tell. Is Higbee back with Baker Mayfield? Like,
I mean, he was next on the list. Like, I had him behind Waller. Like, would you play him over Waller or Andrews? Like, Andrews hasn't done shit in weeks.
So I wouldn't play him over Waller, but it gets San Francisco but I'd still play Waller. But that's where I was going to say, like, in my mind, as soon as you said Andrews, that's why I said Waller, because I didn't know you weren't putting him in order. So when you said Waller, I was saying I would do that I would play him over Andrews. But then when you said Andrews, I immediately started looking at the tight ends, and I'm like, I think if we just took the name off the jersey, Higbee, I think you can make a case for Dawson Knox. You can make a case for Schultz.
Over Andrews?
You can. What has Andrews done?
No. I get that you can make that case. I'm just saying, would you actually do that?
You know what? I think if I'm being honest,
You'd play
no.
If it came down between Dawson Knox and Mark Andrews, you'd play Mark Andrews.
I would, but that's what my point is. I've had Mark Andrews around 8, 9, 10 the past 2 weeks. I think that's the cutoff point. Like, I don't think you can push him much further down than that, because we just know that Andrews can put up 2 touchdowns and 90 yards, even with Hunt. He did it how many times with Huntley last year? And that was part of the reason I got excited for him in DFS that very first game. But it hasn't happened, but you still know that's sitting out there waiting. It's basically, bring up Gabe Davis's name again. Like, if you get down to this, you're going to be like, oh, look, I can go guarantee myself 7 points from the tight end position. Whoop the effing do. It's tight end. Go play Gabe Davis. Go play Mark Andrews. Go play Taysom Hill.
Well, that was the name I wanted to bring up. I mean, obviously, we did get an indication last week that there was going to be a lot more Taysom Hill in that game. That seemed to be like elements decided. Do you think that happens again against Philly, that we see that much Taysom?
I just think the potential for Taysom Hill any given week at what they're doing right now is out there. So I had Taysom Hill over Andrews. I'd have Taysom Hill over Andrews this week too.
Would you have Taysom Hill over Waller?
I could see it. I don't think I would, just because they just might not have the plan for him this weekend. Again, you're talking about 5 rushes for 35 yards. That's still only 3.5 points.
Hey, that's still better than most tight ends, unless your last name is Zylstra.
Right. Oh God. I guess yeah. So I would go Waller.
It looks like both Patriots tight ends are probably out this week. We'll see. I mean, Johnny who has the concussion. No, just in case, like, that's who you were considering streaming at this point. Hayden Hurst might be back, but you're probably not going to know until later in the week, because that's the Monday night game. Like, after that, so here's how I kind of have it shaking out. And I'll put Hurst in right now. So Kelsey, Ingram, Kittle, Hawkinson, Goddard, the 5. Freiermuth, Waller, Taysom, Mark Andrews, Higbee. Knox, Kmet, Schultz, Jawan Johnson, Dulcich, Njoku, Hayden Hurst. Does that sound about right?
Just kind of sounds about, yeah.
Am I missing
You
anyone?
said Higbee, right?
Yeah, I said Higbee. I had Higbee one spot behind Andrews.
Yeah, I think that's about it, because the next kind of group of names,
like
Daniel Bellinger, but Logan
Thomas, like those guys. Uzma, Noah Fant. Although Fant might be
the Uzma.
Well, I mean, Noah Fant might be the last man standing in Seattle. It might just be him and DK Metcalf at receiver.
That is true.
Yeah, you're not playing.
And you said Everett too, right?
I did not say Everett. Like,
even with Parham back, he hasn't gone away.
No, like, would you play? I mean, I would risk.
Dulcich.
I would rather play Dulcich than Gerald Everett.
Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah, but I was going to kind of put him in that conversation, but I think a lot of those names I would play over Gerald Everett.
Yeah, so I'll put him in between Hayden Hurst and Logan Thomas at like 15.
There you go.
All right. Quarterbacks, you should probably have a plan for quarterbacks, I would guess, at this point of the season. But if you don't, who would be the best quarterback you could pick up if you just really hated your situation? Is it still... I mean, I told you about Daniel Jones last week. Run him back again.
I just look. I know. I had him at 9 or 10. Like this Daniel Jones. Like I can not like the player, but also like the fantasy player, and you can like the fantasy player and not like the real player. That's the same thing. So forget what I just said. But yeah, Daniel Jones for my streaming quarterback rankings. I'll give you this is all 60% or under, but Daniel Jones is technically just above it because there's a lot of people that it just might be sitting on dead rosters. So I have Jones, Purdy, White, Heineke if he's the starter, and then Russell Wilson. Like Russell Wilson's behind all those.
Mr. Unlimited. Is his name, sir? Yeah, those
might be now.
Those were the two that I looked at, Purdy and White.
Yeah,
and what's Aaron Rodgers' ownership?
It's still like 70s. He hasn't even gotten close to this. The funny thing is, though, see, this is why I think it comes down to inactive teams, and that's why I said Daniel Jones might be lingering on teams that have already checked out, because when I did my streaming quarterbacks last week, and we were talking about benching Trevor Lawrence and talking about benching guys that just don't touch that game and other games like that, people were like, would you start Aaron Rodgers or would you start Trevor Lawrence? I'm like, you have that choice. He's at 82% still on Yahoo. So I think that's a lot of dead teams possibly, because if you had Aaron Jones or Aaron Rodgers as your only quarterback, you probably didn't make the playoffs.
Yeah, I think there's a big four, honestly, this week. It's Allen, Mahomes, Fields, and Burrow, those four. And then after that, everyone's kind of... We know the separation at... Like, if you had between, like, Goff and Brady, I'd play Goff.
I think, yeah. At home? Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I think Goff is the
Brady's
best.
Not good.
Like, Goff is, like, in that Herbert, Cousins, Geno. I mean, Geno was ass last week, so maybe you don't even consider him there. But, yeah, it is a revenge game. Yeah, like Herbert, Cousins. I mean, Herbert's been bad, too. Like, Herbert's Cousins, Goff, Daniel Jones. You mentioned Purdy and White. I think they're both, like, pretty decent plays. Better than Nick Foles, tell you that much. Brady's a part of that tier, obviously. We're not getting Lamar, right? And Dak, obviously, as well, in that mix on the...
I don't think so.
So, yeah, Dak and Aaron Rodgers, I think, would be like the bottom end of that.
Be prepared to throw this out there. If you didn't make the play, if you didn't already make your backup contingency plan for Trevor Lawrence, because we talked about it at the beginning, like it's such a like slim chance. Like I don't think they're really going to treat 17 as a bye, the Titans or the Jaguars, because again, something you and I talked about off air. But just on the off chance that they're like, oh, Trevor Lawrence is a little banged up, maybe we just make sure he's healthy because we'll just win and we're in week 18. Just if you didn't have a backup plan for the weather, make sure you have a backup plan now.
Teddy Bridgewater, playing him in your fantasy championship?
Nope.
All right. Okay. And Tyler Huntley probably playing again. That's great news. So, yeah, I think that's sort of the cutoff here. Like, so you have the big four, then it's like Herbert, Cousins, Goff, Minshew, Lawrence, Daniel Jones, Purdy, Dak, Rodgers, Mike White, Tom Brady. I think that's like the next tier, and pray to God you have one of those guys you can play, unless there's a case you want to make for someone else.
Nope.
Desmond Ridder?
Also, because I got 1 minute, so you're up against the clock.
Give me your favorite streaming defense of the week, and then I'll run through before I let you go. Or I'll let you go and I'll run through.
For mine, it was Jacksonville against Houston.
And the Chargers, you said, right?
The Chargers ended up getting boosted over, I think. Or no, wait. I have Jacksonville, Washington, Chargers as my top three.
Chiefs D still might be out there. Yeah, Jags D, Chiefs D, Jets D against Seattle, I think is pretty nice if they're still out there. Chargers D. And I don't especially hate the Giants D against Indianapolis.
They were my fifth streaming defense, so I'm with you on that one.
All right. Those are the defenses that, I mean, you know the good, like 49ers against Vegas, good defensive play this week. Dallas against Tennessee, good defensive play. You're looking for someone, those are the ones you want to target to go pick up off the waiver wire. Jake, it's been fun. You're number 8, sir. Going on a decade soon.
I know. It's been a long time. It's been a hell of a lot of fun. We're going to have to do some off-season shows like we always do, so we're not going
to. I feel like we owe the people, we were right, we were wrong. Biggest hits and biggest misses. Maybe we'll record that sometime in the next few weeks.
That sounds good. I know people are going to love to hate on us for that one.
Is Cam Akers a win now?
No. I will not victory lap cam makers.
Fair enough. At All In Kid for Jake Ciely, theathletic.com. His waivers, his injuries, and his rankings all going to be out over the next few days, so please go check those out. All of mine are going to be available down in the description once they are published. They are not published yet because I just made them on the show. This is how I do it every single week if people are ever wondering. When I think about like this guy or this guy, this guy or this guy. Anyway, dknation.com is where you can find all of that and play in the One and Done for Golf. Smash likes out of the channel, and I will see you next time.
Mayo experience. Experience.